But I guess to get started, can you just tell me, I know something about you, but just to hear it from your mouth, just so I have a little bit of understanding how you got to be the key journey that led you to be the man where you're sitting here today talking to me?
It's been a very interesting journey.
Yeah.
Lots of ups and downs. I ended up joining the army in November 2000 after trying a whole bunch of stuff in life. I got kicked out of home. I wasn't paying attention in school. I was smoking a lot of marijuana and drinking and fighting and all that stuff.
Right.
And it led me down this path where I realized that there was this big, amazing world out there, and I so badly wanted to be a part of it, but I didn't really know how. I was kind of stuck in this bubble and going round and round in circles and not having enough money to live properly. So I ended up talking to my two younger brothers who were in the army, and they sold it. So I ended up joining as a paratrooper and did that for 5 years, did some incredible things.
Yep.
Went to East Timor for the United Nations for 6 months. And then when I came back from that, I discovered the clearance divers and thought, you know what, I'm going to try something new. I've never been diving before. So I gave that a crack and made it through this rigorous selection process. And I was doing that for about 5 years. And while I was doing an exercise in Sydney Harbour, I got attacked by a shark. And a bull shark came up from underneath me and grabbed me by my right hand and my right hamstring in the same bite, and decided that I was tasty enough to have a snack on and started tearing me apart.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, I had some very well-trained buddies in the safety boat who kept me alive until the paramedics got there. And I spent 9 weeks in hospital. I ended up losing my right leg. My right hand was gone. And it was a really tough time of my life, the toughest part of my life so far. But over the last few years, it has bred so much opportunity that I can barely look back on it as a negative incident. It really changed my life for the better.
Yeah, great. So on an emotional level then, obviously that, I won't delve too much right now into the traumas that you've been through, but so now are you saying you're cleansed of all that stuff, or are there still remnants of confusion and trauma and fear in you, or are you over it, like you've moved ahead and life goes on?
To be honest, there really wasn't any of that at any point.
Right, okay.
I don't know why. Look, I've never had a nightmare. I've never had flashbacks. I don't have PTSD. I looked at it as having a choice. And my choices in this really, really complex situation was, what do I want? Do I want a good life, or do I want a bad life?
Yeah.
And so like everyone else, I want a good life. So all I had to do was lay out a plan and a path to achieve that. And that's what I stuck with. And, the shark attack was horrible. It was pain that I can't even explain to you. But I'm not going to hold on to that for the rest of my life as the crux of my existence and the turning point and the be all and end all of my life. It's something that happened.
Yeah.
And it led me down another path. So we all have to be open to these challenges and these new stories and new journeys. And they don't have to be bad, even though they feel like they might be at the time. You can make of them whatever you will.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think, just that little gem of wisdom right there is something every human being could learn from, couldn't they? You don't have to have something extreme happen to you. It's if you apply that approach to life in general, can make a huge difference.
I think everyone knows. I think most people know that and they understand that, but we get caught up in the emotions of it all, and we decide to work off emotion instead of using our brain and let emotions work for us.
Yeah. So what is in the midst of all that then? What's fear to you? You know what I mean?
Fear.
What is that for you?
Before the shark attack, there was only two things that I was really afraid of.
Yeah.
Sharks and public speaking. Right. Now I make documentaries for Discovery Channel's Shark Week, and my second career is public speaking. So you never really know what life's got in store for you.
Yeah, right.
But fear, now there is no fear. The fear that maybe I won't accomplish enough where I'm happy at the end of my days, or I've made a difference for the better in the world. That's probably the only fear that I have, and I wouldn't even call it a fear. I'd call it more of a concern, because I'm working towards that anyway.
So in the midst then of this more fearless state, because I don't know how much you've observed or look at humanity or other human beings, fear seems to be taking over the world to some degree, and it's evidence, whether it be in psychological conditions or so many new laws every day, that's all fear driven, and we think somehow that's making our life easier, but of course it just creates more repression, and we can't think for ourselves as individuals because we're told as adults, like even at my age, I'm told what I can and can't do, like I'm some child that needs guidance from a politician. And of course they use physical enforcement to make me behave, so it's only a policeman with a gun that can get me to do anything. Take away that and it'd be like, yeah, whatever. So,
which has already happened.
Hey?
Which has already happened. They've already taken away your right to protest.
Well, that's right. And look, and I've had an incident too where I learnt a lot with the police, where I tried to save a guy that they were beating up, and the guy was unconscious and he'd already peed his pants. So as far as I was concerned, he might have even been dead. And I asked them to stop. I said, stop hitting this guy. I said, you're going to kill him. And cut a long story short, 8 of them ended up beating the shit out of me for asking them to stop. So that was like we all have our pinnacle moments, I guess. That was one of my wake-up calls in life that made me think, well, do I fight the system? It's a bit like, do you fight the shark who hurt you, or do you wake up in it and learn more and grow more and give more back to the world, rather than wasting your time, trying to, right or wrong or whatever, however you want to perceive it. But the main point is, realistically, is how I got deeper into exploring the truth of human beings and how much fear is guiding everyone's lives. So I find it intriguing when you say how much you've pushed through fear or looked beyond fear, what that really is for you. And do you recognize that a lot of people are still trapped in fear? Can you see that yourself as an observer of life?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it as a useful tool. And over the years, that's what I've learnt to look at things as our emotions, our physical strength, our mentalities. You have to look at them as either a useful tool or a useless tool. And fear is just, it's useless, but the world is such a fearful place. It's so angry, and there's so many horrible things going on in the world. But at the same time, there are people out there trying to negate that. Just like you were talking about with the police that were beating that guy and you were trying to save him, they beat you. I know a lot of police, and not all of them are like that. Not all of them want to see that happen. And while there is the fear and the anger and the hate, there is the light and there is the love and there is the caring on the other side. So it's a constant battle of light and dark. But, like the saying says, the only thing that it will take for evil to win is for good men to do nothing.
That's right.
So that's what we do. We keep working.
So does that mean I could fairly say you see yourself as a good man in the world now?
I try. I try.
You try.
No one's flawless. I'm doing my best. I'm working towards it. I learn every day. I learn from people like you. I learn from the people that I work with in TV and talking. So I'm just a student of the world.
Yeah. So from your studies so far then, what do you reckon's going on? Like it doesn't look like we as a species are cutting it at the moment. In some ways, a lot of people think we are improving, and I think technology gives the illusion of that. But if you look at the environment, if you look at how many animals are killed every day, the nature of how they're killed, how many starving children there are in the world, how many people take advantage of children, whether it be sexually or physically or whatever. There's an endless list of things that I could come up with, let alone the psychological status, like anxiety and depression and suicide.
Yeah.
Like Australia's got one of the highest youth suicide rates in the world at times. And
I know, the lucky country, right?
Lucky country, that's right. We've got beaches, good times, it's all here. And yet we seem to be ignoring what's really going on. What do you, like, are you getting any sense of what's happening to your own species? Like why we're doing this, and where are you sitting with all that at the moment?
It's a little bit scary. I'm not going to lie, but a lot of these things have always been happening, and that's not to say that it's not important, but the technology has allowed us to gather this information, and that's one of the good things about it. At least we know now, and everyone knows now.
That's
and
right.
We can do something about it. We can work towards a common goal. I think that the movement of human enlightenment, for lack of a better word, is it has gathered so much more strength. It used to be looked at as those weird, hairy, tree-hugging hippies, but now you're not like that. You're not seeing dreadlocked and bandanaed heads chaining themselves to tree. You're seeing government ministers doing it because people realize that this isn't just a cause to save a tree or save a forest. This is a cause to save the planet and in turn to save us. So I love the fact that so many more people are getting involved and they're doing it smart too. They're not just taking the militant way. We've got very smart people working towards changing the government, changing policy, creating new legislation. And that's what I love about the whole situation at the moment and the use of technology.
And do you feel that how much do you feel, I guess, the truth is coming out in our use of technology? Like minimum? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting fed a lot of crap. We the people do not control the media, and that is quite obvious as to the ridiculous headlines that keep coming out. So many important things are happening in the world that aren't being talked about, and yet Beyonce put out a new album.
Yes.
Has anyone ever heard of what's going on in Chile? The hundreds of whales killed all of the sardines, thousands and thousands of them washed up. The whole sea life in Chile is dead. How many people even know about that?
Yeah.
It's being spoon-fed to us in little amounts that we can handle and digest.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And look, in some ways you could say we don't control the media, but at the same time, the media gives us what we want. So it's not a good sign about us, is it, as a species?
Oh, man, I don't even pay attention to it anymore.
Yeah, no,
I do my own research.
Yeah. Look, and everything's confused. Even like, I went to an animal law lecture last night at the Adelaide University, and it's a Dutch politician who's in Australia giving some speeches, and she's talking about movements in the legal system and what they're doing in Holland and stuff like that. But even then, there's a lot of distortion in the information, and it gets very segregated. Like when you go through politics and law, there's always that risk that everything gets jammed into little boxes, and suddenly we're talking about life. We're talking about just stuff we need to be talking about, and we're trying to put it in policies and things like that. And I find it all made me feel a bit uncomfortable and weird, actually, hearing about animal cruelty in little legislative things. And then they also put out false information. Like one of the starting things in the speech was that, we love dogs, but we eat pigs. And why is that? And I was thinking, well, we don't even treat dogs that well.
Yeah.
I go for a walk every day with my dog, and I just see dogs alone, locked in backyards, late at night, freezing cold. They don't even have long hair.
But on the other hand, not all of us eat pigs.
And not all of us eat pigs, so I feel like we got to remove all the crap, whether it be even out of, the vegan movement or animal rights or wherever. I just think there's got to be this stage, which is what hopefully, we're working on here with Unedited Space, to see whether we can just get some more real conversations going and see what it does, see if people get interested in that. I hope they do. I'd be disappointed if they didn't, but hey, if they don't, they don't. We can't make people be interested. But I think, ultimately, I think humans are attracted to truth.
Oh, totally. We love to give our 2 cents as well. So we love to be
that too. Yeah.
Giving other people useful information that they can implement into their own lives. The only problem, like you said, is there's so much misinformation, and it almost feels like the mountain is just too big to summit and too huge to understand sometimes, because like we have the wealth of the world's knowledge in a few fingertips, but is it all accurate? What do you believe? What don't you believe? What do you take away for yourself? So we all kind of have to make our own decisions and our own judgments on that and do what we all feels right. But unfortunately, not all of the world feels that way. And the battles and the fighting and the wars and the animal rights and the pollution and the ecosystem, it's just in constant flux and in a constant battle of, is it going to survive? Are we going to destroy it? I'm just really glad that we have some of those warriors out there trying to fight the battle for us.
So how are you coping then, as one guy, obviously doing everything you can to make a difference? And like you were mentioning how, it's almost like we're up against a tsunami of bullshit coming our way. And do you ever feel like that? I'm just one little guy talking against all this ignorance and stupidity, or is there a sense of like, you know what, I may be one guy, but the strength of what I say is where my strength comes from? Like,
You know what, mate? When I was trying to get back to work after I lost my limbs, and so many people told me that it wasn't going to happen and it was impossible, and yet I did it in 6 months. And so I realized that, you know what, impossible is just a word that other people use to limit themselves. So I don't see anything as impossible. I don't get overwhelmed by it too much. I just try and focus on what I'm working at one point in time. If I can make a difference there, fantastic. If someone asks me to help out somewhere else, then I'll do what I can to help out here. So I try not to get too drowned up in it all. I just take one thing at a time and work towards a common goal.
right. So when you do that, do you carry with you an awareness the whole time that we're living on a planet that needs saving? Like, does that ever leave your mind? Like, have you got to that point in your journey where it's not just about what Paul can do, it's about what we all need to do, and that's an ever-present awareness? Are you at that phase of your journey where you kind of, that's locked in, and
Um,
without it being overwhelming, of course, and
not all the
dwelling on
time.
it?
That's not in my mind all the time, because that's a very negative way to look at it, I see. I don't want to see the world as it needs saving. We need to save it because it's dying. I see it as we need to work towards something. We need to build something better. We need to fight for what we believe in, what we believe is worth saving. So it's not, I need to save the world. It's, okay, today I'm working on trying to raise awareness about sharks and how important they are in the ecosystem. And like Steve Irwin said, the best way for you to save an animal or anything really is to make people fall in love with it and realize that they want to save it. So most of the time what I'm doing is not focusing on the world is dying. I'm focusing on the fact that I need to make people love these things so they find it valuable enough to save.
Right. Yeah, well, that's great. So you're inspiring people towards the beauty that lives within the world, but aware of the bullshit that's going on, but not letting that drain you and bring you down. I think, look, because I think that's really fantastic.
I don't want it to burn me out. I don't want to gain that hatred and anger that everyone else has. I want to see this as a, this is just the building blocks of what we all need to do. So yes. I'm not going to let the hate and the anger and the frustration get to me. I'm just going to keep working.
Well, I think one of the keys with that, Paul, is doing exactly what you're doing. Like, I would say anyone listening to this, every vegan listening to this could be, have a little think about their life, and are they getting lost in the anger and the doomsday and the frustration of everything? Because obviously that doesn't do anyone any good. And then you end up just being a miserable person contributing to the very thing that's destroying the planet, even though your intentions are good. Okay. Or even though you might be living a vegan lifestyle and not hurting animals, or you may take care of people during the day, but you're still angry at everyone, and it's just not a good thing. So, as far as, is there something you could share to people that would, so they can work out how to do this? Is it just simply a mindset where you just said to yourself, "I'm not going to let all that in"? Like, how did you do that? How did you get to that space that so few people get to? Or was it the extremeness of what happened to you?
I just think I learned that stress isn't very useful. I've been in so many stressful situations in my time in the military that I realized that it's something you learn over time through struggle. I don't see struggle as a bad thing. I see it as a learning experience where it constantly makes you stronger. So I think it's very similar along those lines, where you just learn over time, and you listen and you see what's happening, and you realize, are the things that I'm doing helping, or are they maybe helping a little bit and hurting me as a person and making me angrier and not want to do bigger and better things to help? Why are we doing this? Are we doing it to save the animals? Yeah, of course. Are we doing it to save the planet? Yeah, of course. but we're doing it to save everything. We're doing it to save us as well. And I hear a lot of people talking about how they love animals more than humans. And, you know, I get that. I get both sides of the story as well. But ultimately, we're trying to save the animals and the planet, the ecosystem, the oceans, and us as well as a human species. So there's no point getting angry with everyone and fighting the good fight. Just teach them love. Teach them to care. Teach them that there is a better way to be than wanting to eat bacon every morning for breakfast and eat baby sheep and, you know, litter, throw your cigarette butts in the ground. Talk to people. Don't get angry. Don't abuse them. Talk to them and teach them how you feel. And maybe they will feel the same way. I've had that experience many times where people just didn't know. I picked someone up for throwing a cigarette butt on the ground and said, look, you know where that ends up? You're at Bondi Beach. That's going to end up in the ocean where we all swim and fish is going to choke on it. And they looked at me and just said, oh, you know what? I never thought about it like that. So we have to understand that we can't be forceful all the time. The anger doesn't work. It really doesn't.
No. But you still got to stand strong in the truth, I think, is the key.
Shit, yeah.
You know, and if you are, then you don't need to be angry in a sense, you know, because if you're standing strong in the truth, it means you're strong.
Yeah,
and
you
then when
stand
you're
your
strong,
ground for
you
sure.
can speak the truth.
For sure, you stand your ground. You know? It's what you believe in. You have to.
Yeah.
You know, no one should take away from their beliefs. You know, no one should submit to someone else's belief just because they have a good argument. You know? But I don't know, man. It's just it's the way I look at it, and I understand that not everyone looks at it the same way that I do, and I'm not forcing my opinions on anyone either. I just try and make people understand and fall in love with the things that I love.
But see, I don't see you as someone living in an alternate belief structure. In fact, I see you as the opposite. I see you as someone that's stepping out of beliefs and stepping into truth. And so I do feel like it's something that all human beings could, you know, eventually think and feel in the nature of you, as the individuals that they are, of course. So we're all going to have our own unique expression.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's an emerging of, you know, there's not a lot of people like yourself, but there's enough. You know, whether it be like, you know, Damien, right? Damien Mander.
Amazing
you know,
guy.
Yeah, Damien's a wonderful guy, and had wonderful conversations with him. And I love talking to Damien because he talks about everything as well. You know what I mean? He sees the whole thing. He doesn't just get locked into one narrow view as poaching or whatever. He sees the whole world and all animals and factory farm animals and human beings and this and this and this. And I think that I see Damien similar in that sense, like he's a man emerging into truth. And I think we all can. And I think you guys are inspiration for exactly that there's another way we can be as human beings. And I think it's about dropping our beliefs to some degree, because this doesn't require a belief. For you to be a loving, decent guy, you don't have to believe in anything. You just be it.
Yeah.
Well,
it might
we
sound
got lost in our beliefs.
It might sound stupid, but there's this movie that came out a long time ago with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. It's called Dogma. And it was a religious comedy movie. But in it, Chris Rock says something really poignant that always stayed with me. He said that humans took a great idea and turned it into a belief. You can change an idea, you can develop an idea, but you cannot change a belief.
And what do you make of that?
If you get so strung up on one way of thinking, you'll have your blinkers on to everything else that's going on, and you won't be able to expand your experience and expand on your mind sight of what you want to become. Really, you'll just be heading straight down this one-way path of belief, whereas there's all this other stuff around us that you might miss.
Beautiful. Well said. Yeah, very true. Like somehow you've tapped in, I think, to some of the key observations of life, humanity, thinking or whatever. And good for you, by the way, for finding that within yourself.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Still learning every day.
Yeah, of course. Me too. It doesn't stop, you know, and that's the beautiful thing about it. Once you're on an expansive journey, you don't stop expanding. You know, you don't get weaker and smaller as you get older.
You realize how much you don't know.
But your mind doesn't.
Yeah, you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah. All right. Paul, we were having you and Dean were having an informal discussion there about, veganism and eating animals and all that kind of stuff. So where are you sitting at the moment with all that? Because obviously you're putting forward a message of love, and how many inconsistencies are there in your own personal life that are conflicting with that, and where does that fit in with animals and eating them and veganism and all that? Sort of set me straight on who you are and where you're at
to be
that
honest,
phase.
it was conflicting for quite some time, and to a certain extent, it still is. When I started working with Damien, for example, in Africa, I went over there and shot a doco and hunted poachers with his rangers and stuff. And he was a vegan because he told me that he couldn't justify trying to save these animals and eating animals at the same time. So that really awakened something in me that if he feels that way and he can pull it off in the middle of Africa, then I really don't have an excuse. So I started to explore
Maybe
it all.
Just quickly, sorry to interrupt, just quickly explain to people who he is, just very briefly. Yeah.
Yeah. So Damien Mander is an ex-Australian Navy clearance diver, the same job that I have. And he was touring Iraq, doing private military contracting for many years. And when he decided that he was just sick of it, he was sick of the death and the hate, and he went on a safari into Africa. And while he was there, he saw a rhinoceros with its horn cut off, and it broke his heart. So he decided that that was going to be his next cause. And he came home and sold all of his property, invested every cent he had into developing the International Anti-Poaching Foundation in Zimbabwe. And it took many years to pull off, this white Australian guy in the middle of Africa trying to save the animals.
I bet.
But credit to him, he stuck with it, he invested all his money into it, and he pulled it off. And they've had such an amazing success rate there. So he's become a bit of a teacher and a mentor for me. I always look up to him and try and learn from his example. So that was really the start for me there. And I kind of felt the same. I'm trying to save the animals. I'm trying to raise awareness, but here I am eating animals. And I started to wonder if it really meant that much to me. And it really doesn't. And then last week I was doing a debate for the, what was it called? The Ethics Center.
Yep.
And they asked me to write a 7-minute speech about why animal rights should trump human interest. And I spent a lot of time on it, trying to win over hearts and minds, and I kind of won over my own heart and mind. So I realized that, I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm starting out slow. I haven't touched any meat in a week, and I don't miss it. I don't need it. I actually could not be bothered cooking it and eating it. So it really hasn't been hard. I mean, lots of beans and rice and veggies, and I feel no different. I don't have any lack of energy. I'm still training hard. So I think once I'm comfortable in this position, I can start to push a little further, and I'm on all the Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts, so that in my spare time, while I'm just going through social media, I'm learning about it as well. So before I know it, I'll be vegan and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal.
Yeah. So what's holding you back then? Like, well, not now. I can see you shifting, but so other people understand, maybe on their journeys and can have some inspiration to keep going. What do you think it was that stopped you just from going, eating animals is wrong completely, and I'm not going to partake in that because it's a cruel act, and I don't want to take pleasure from cruelty. But as we know, that the human mind will compromise its integrity when pleasure's involved, which is usually the key. What was it for you that stopped you from seeing this sooner, do you think?
Education. I didn't know enough. So it was for, the same way that I learnt how and decided how not to be angry and frustrated and scared when I lost my hand and my leg was by learning. I didn't talk to a counsellor ever. I got onto my laptop while I was in my hospital bed, and I got onto Google and I Googled prosthetics, and I got onto YouTube and I watched video clips of Paralympic athletes and disabled people doing incredible things, and I realized that if they could do it, there's no reason that I can't do it as well. So I'm learning from their examples, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm in the midst of an education. That's why it hasn't happened like that, because I don't know enough about it, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm doing myself harm.
So what's the key issue then? Like, why wouldn't you eat an animal?
Well, initially it was because I'm a big softie and I love animals. And the more I learn, the more video clips I watch about, factory cows being saved, and they look so just friendly, and they have a heart, and it almost feels like they have a soul, and they're beautiful creatures, and yet we put a nail gun in their head, strip their skin off and bleed them down, cut them into little pieces and sell them in plastic in the supermarket. And it just doesn't feel right anymore. Now, ignorance is not an excuse. I know now, so that's what I'm working towards. I don't want to eat it. I don't like bacon anyway. I don't like pork or any of that crap. So I'm going to train myself into, not liking the other stuff as well, and looking at it as an ethical decision, a health decision, and that's my choice. That's the path I want to take. So that's what I'll do.
Look, and I think this fits into what we were talking about earlier about getting life out of beliefs, because you can justify anything in a belief. You can justify, abusing animals, or like you're saying, eating a cute little baby lamb. How cute does it get?
Yeah, exactly.
Let alone the fact it's taken from its mother and the whole traumatic process. To think that that's one of Australia's favourite foods is the danger of a belief structure.
Yeah. We all know about the dangers.
And that's what humans are trapped in.
We all know about the dangers of belief in the religious system, don't we?
Yes, exactly.
And so that's supposed to be the be-all and end-all of goodness.
Well, let alone, and politics, and all wars are over beliefs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all people are fighting over. So I just think that the inspiration, what I see with you, is a man just growing deeper and deeper into the truth. And when information comes your way, you seem to be looking at it and absorbing it. And that it's that simple, really. Like, people, I think, are making this too complicated. And I think, don't try and work it out within your belief, because you never will. Because if someone is, they believe that baby lambs should be killed, we'll never be able to hear what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But if they forget their belief for a while and just listen to you and feel what you're saying, then they've got an opportunity to feel it as well, because you're just speaking in the truth of what is. Because it's not psychologically healthy to justify pleasure from the byproducts of murder and abuse. Can't be doing your mind any good, right?
No, of course. I can't see that it could be. But, there's people out there that kill people. People that enjoy killing people. And animals are much further down the scale to them than people are. So you're never going to be able to sell it to everyone. But you can sell it to, and selling is probably the wrong word. Like you said, get them to put their beliefs aside, try and touch their heart and their soul as a human being, because our compassion is what makes us human. I believe, I think, I don't want to, you make me not want to say belief now, but that's what I think. Our compassion makes us human. So if you can touch that compassion in a person and make them realize the error in their ways, then maybe it'll work. I'm a very compassionate person in the way that I always understand both sides of the fence as well. So I understand people like to eat meat. I understand they've done it their whole lives. It's ingrained into the system, and it's very hard to change that sometimes. But
that's right.
It doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
Yes. No, absolutely. Look, it's become part of their identity, which is part of your belief, because we all have beliefs about ourselves as an individual, and people think that's just about your personality or the way you look, but everything you do becomes part of your identity.
Yeah.
Eating meat can become part of your identity, and that's why people struggle to give it up, because they feel like they're giving up part of them, part of their own existence.
I don't dislike anyone because they eat meat. I understand. I don't hold any grudges against anyone. Jeez, last week I was eating a steak and a hamburger, so who would I be to lecture someone else? But, it would be nice if I could sway them to the good side of the force. And that's
and do you find the more you're heading in that direction, how's that changing you as a man? Like, are you feeling differences in yourself? Like, what's happening to you as you're going on this journey and getting older and learning more? And are you recognizing yourself as feeling and behaving differently? Like, how would someone perceive you as differently to the guy they might have known? I know you described some things when you were young fighting, but more in terms of forget what you were, I guess, more what's come in, what's entered you that wasn't there before, perhaps.
I definitely feel more full as a person. I'm not just on automatic pilot anymore, living week to week, going out with my friends, drinking, and then going to work and getting up and training and going to work, and on this, endless elliptical machine, just going and going and going, not even thinking. Now I feel like I'm more a part of the world. I feel more like, I feel more full as a person. I'm more whole, which is a really nice feeling.
And do you have a vision of where your life is growing, or are you just going with it as you just taking it as it comes, or?
Yeah, look, I don't know. The worst thing you can do is make really plans and expect them to stay exactly how you envisioned them. So while I do make small plans and give myself challenges and goals, I don't have a finite end goal. I don't have a plan at the end. I'm just working away, doing what I love, being a happy person, and trying to spread that happiness to everyone that I meet.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You're a strange man, Paul. You seem to have somehow. Well, this is all gold, right? Everything you say, it's on the money. This is how people need to think. This is the answer. Planning's like a belief structure. It limits your life. It locks you in. It makes you compromise your integrity because you're so determined to get to that end result. You know what I mean?
Something you learn in the military: best laid plans always go to shit. You know what, mate? I'm happy to be a very strange man. I'm happy in myself. I don't have any grudges or anger. I have an amazing life. I get great opportunities. I often have people writing to me on social media and emails saying that I've changed the way that they look at the world and they look at their life for the better. And that's really what I'm trying to achieve. So if I can continue down this path, then I'm happy to be a very strange man.
Yeah, well, it's a good kind of strange. So I want to go back into something you were just talking about a while ago, where that attitude about how, I used to eat meat. I had some not long ago, and I don't want to be angry or condemning others that do. I mean, I agree the lack of condemnation is essential, because otherwise it gets crazy, because nobody's perfect, and otherwise where does it start, where does it stop? But I still feel there's a desensitization in society, and I think one thing, when people often head into this animal thing, they can go to two extremes. They can get too justifying of the fact that others are still doing it because that's just the way of life. And then we're forgetting that they're animals we're talking about. It's not meat. That meat can only be there because a living being like you and I that does have a soul and a spirit and a life it's like if you own a dog. You don't have to, be around a dog long enough to realize how much they feel.
Yeah.
And every day is a day to get through for them too. You can see that it's a journey, and they go through all sorts of emotions, and sometimes a bit scared, other times more confident, and it's almost exactly the same as us in so many ways. And I think every living creature is like that. I think we underestimate how much they're feeling.
I agree.
And I know when I talk about it, I refuse to even allow it to be meat. I don't care that I used to eat meat, and that's not going to influence me. I live in the truth of the man I am today and the truth of what the world is today.
Yeah.
So as the man I am today, I feel obliged to speak up, and I'll speak up for anything smaller and weaker and disadvantaged that's been taken advantage of. And that's why if somebody eats meat, it's not about attacking them, but I always feel a responsibility to, I can't run around talking to everybody. But of course, it's not something I'm going to avoid, whether it be with a family member, a friend, or whoever, because I think it's so important that we don't put it in some different basket to all the other atrocities on the planet.
Yeah.
And we tend to a little bit, only because we've got so used to it, and it's everywhere. Like even when you become a vegan, still you go outside, everyone's eating meat everywhere.
Yeah.
So, and I just think we can't let that throw us off track to the greater truth of getting love out in the world, because the only love that's going to save this world is strong love.
Yeah.
It's like bringing up a child or anybody. You don't help someone being weak. You help them with your strength, but your strength without love doesn't help either. So it's like you got to find that unison between the two.
Well, you're not going to make any difference sitting in the corner being a vegan, are you?
No, you're
There's
not,
no difference
and
there.
you're not going to help being an angry vegan either. Yeah. But you're still going to be one that stands in the strength. I think if we all stood in this truth of this world and what is right and wrong, because I think we all know in our heart, I think the world would change very quickly. And even if it just started with thousands, and then next thing it's 100,000, and then I think people would start getting it, and then I think we'd see a shift happening naturally within society. But I think the good people aren't standing up strong enough yet in themselves. They're not doing enough with what they know. And I think it's the desensitization from society that's causing the corruption. So, that's why I thought I'd dive in on what you said, because it's like I think there is an element of that where you don't want to get too caught up in being complacent about it and just calling it meat. And remember that could be, your family member's meat. It could be anyone's meat. If another species came down and thought we tasted good, then suddenly we're on the production line.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't like it then.
This is what I like. I'm learning. Now I'm learning from you. We're just in conversation. Now, because of this conversation, I'm never going to be able to look at it as meat again. I'm always going to look at it as a cow or a poor sheep or whatever else it is. That's what I like about it. You just because we don't want to be angry about it doesn't mean you can't share your passion and give that passion to someone else. I feel it. I hear what you're saying, and that's changed just something small in my head right now. And sometimes that's all it takes to change something small to make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I can tell you one of my big shifts. I used to be a talkback radio announcer, and I was talking to always about like you, love, compassion. Like it just made sense to me that we got to think more, talk more, feel more. And yet I ate meat at the time. This was many, many years ago, back in the 90s, early 90s. And a woman phoned up and she said, I've been listening to your show for a long time. She said, you seem like a lovely man. You're intelligent. You're caring. She said, but I just doesn't make sense to me. And she started she got very angry. And as it turns out in that moment, that anger of 2 minutes of giving me shit, basically, for being a hypocrite, was the turning point in my life. Like you, my brain just went, oh shit, she's right.
Yeah.
What am I doing? And that just changed so much in my life. It's I wasn't trying to hide things deliberately, but I realized that there were things in my life I was partaking in that honestly, if I'm being true to myself and look at it honestly, then of course I can't continue doing that.
Yeah. Well, ignorance fills the gaps.
Yes.
So as long as you can ensure that people aren't ignorant about it, then they're making a conscious decision.
Yes, that's right. So what is consciousness to you? Just now you brought up that word. What is that to you? Is it sort of just a feeling, or?
It's all what we call in the military all-around awareness. And working in the civilian world now, I find lots and lots of, probably the majority of people that I meet don't have an all-around awareness. They're in their bubble, worrying about their own little world. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because we all get stuck in our own little world. We all have our problems, and my problems are no bigger or better than anyone else's. They're just a little bit different. But we need to have this all-around awareness of the things that we're doing in our lives, from putting our supermarket groceries into plastic bags to how we interact with someone on the street, because you never know what is going on with that person. It takes a very small act of kindness sometimes to change a person's day, a week, or their whole outlook on life. So it's the all-around awareness of, we're not the only thing existing right here, right now, in this space of time. There is so much other stuff going on that we need to be aware about. We don't have to be thinking about it all the time, hyper vigilant all the time, but just be aware and realize that there's other things going on. There's people that could use a little bit of love, a pat on the back, or well done. There's conscious decisions about utilizing plastic and eating meat, for example, as we were just talking about, things like that. Be aware, right?
Yes. Yeah, awareness is, I got a little thing in this book I wrote where I said, is awareness science or magic? And my conclusion is it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
There's a science to it. You can see why it works, but it's kind of magical because it kind of does its own thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to figure life out as much as you think you do. You just become an aware person and you see stuff.
Yeah. You're open
all the time.
I'm so much more open to things now as well, just by looking at it that way. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons that my life is so amazing now, because I've become open to experiences. I would never in a million years in the past have gotten up at the Equity Centre in front of 400, 500, 600 people in a debate and given a 7-minute speech. Never.
So how did you feel doing that?
Terrified.
Terrified.
No, look, I wasn't terrified. I was just worried that I wouldn't get across the points that I wanted to get across. I wouldn't say it the way that I wanted to. I'd forget stuff. But I put in some practice, and I feel like I did okay. I got to this 13 seconds left, and I looked down, and I still had a whole page worth of information. But you know what? Things change. Best laid plans and all that. So I skipped to the end. I summarized. I made my point, and I feel like I did the right thing. I gave my heart and soul to win over hearts and minds, and that was my goal. And a lot of people said that it worked. So I'm happy, even though it was a terrifying experience that was outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I'm open to all of that now. And some of the greatest things in my life have come from getting outside of my comfort zone and being open.
So, do you still have any insecurities that hold you back? Like, I mean, obviously, there's not too much holding you back.
I do have it.
But do you still have moments like, where you think, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that?
All the time.
Does that still enter your mind at times? Or?
All the time. I'm not all robot. I'm just partially robot. Man, I have so many insecurities. I don't like to wear my arm all the time because it gets hot, it gets sweaty in the sun, or I'm going to the dog park and I want to feel with my arm instead of a robot hand. So I don't wear it all the time. And people stare at me. And while I don't feel embarrassed like I used to, I do get a little self-conscious. I'll walk down a street and I'll see a really pretty girl and I'll look at her and she will be looking at me, and then she looks down at my hand and looks away. And it gets to you a little bit, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to change who I am. I can't change the fact that I don't have a hand, so I accept it and understand that other people are curious and wondering, and maybe I'm not for everyone, but that's fine. That's okay. It's just me. Well, I don't need everyone to love me and accept me and understand, because I can do that for them.
Well, true love obviously goes beyond that anyway. We don't spend our life with the people that we find, the most attractive or have, two hands. We hang out with the people that we connect with in a real way, ultimately. And a lot of people never find that true connections because they are obsessed with all the wrong superficial outer layers of life. Yeah. So I guess just this alone must be pushing you as a man to become bigger than all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because you're forced to in a way, and you do have these challenges that perhaps a lot of people don't have. Do you feel that the insecurities are getting less with time, or?
Oh, they're much less than what they were in. Much less than they were in the early days. But it is just time in some ways. I understand that if I was walking down the street and I saw a half robot dude, I would have a look as well.
Yeah.
And I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to be angry about it, because then I'd just be angry all the time, and who wants that? Yeah. So I try to look at it from their shoes. And sometimes it is annoying. Sometimes it's really bad. It's really blatant. And people will just stop and open mouth stare at me. And I find that really rude. But what am I going to do about it? I'm not going to yell at them. I'm not going to have a go at them. I just smile and keep going.
Well, and you never know what they're thinking anyway. They could be looking at you for all sorts of reasons. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You're a good-looking guy. You got a good physique.
I've got to get up in the morning. I've got to get up in the morning. I've got to put a leg on. I've got to put an arm on. I've got to take my leg off at the end of the night. And I don't see them as problems now. It's just how my life is. And I see people every single day that I would rather not be, because they are emotionally and mentally broken. I have that strength. I'm not mentally broken. I'm not physically. Well, I'm a little bit physically damaged, but it doesn't stop me from doing anything. I get up every morning and I go to the gym, and then after the gym I go for a surf, and then after the surf I go and walk my dog. Yeah. I live, and that would probably be one of the scariest things for me, is to not live. So I do. I just get up and nothing stops me. Right tool for the right job. I just find a way. And like I said, man, I feel bad for a lot of people out there, because they can't see how amazing life can be. They're just sort of stuck in their bubble, and they feel like they can't. And I've heard people, they said to friends of mine that have been talking about me going out surfing or whatever and going back to work, they say, oh yeah, but that's Paul de Gelder. That's Paul. You know, he's different, but it's so untrue. You know, I wasn't always this way. Like we were talking about earlier, I was one of the weakest people I knew. You know, I just decided to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the, you know, the true inspiration of to share that every human being can see. You don't have to be a victim of what's happened to you or where you're at in life, but you've got to be honest where you're at to change, though. That's an essential quality. You know, no one can change until they see where they're at. It's a bit like, imagine you're lost in a forest and you got your GPS navigation and your coordinates are wrong. You know, you're never going to find your way out. So real life's like that. If you really want to grow and move forward in life, you've got to know where you're moving forward from. And if you're telling yourself bullshit and lying to yourself and painting a false picture, hiding your insecurities, you know, the best thing I encourage people, acknowledge your insecurities. Don't protect anything, you know, because otherwise what happens is those things we protect, they throw us off track and we never see where we clearly sit. And so our whole life is like a fumbling mess in a way. And then we feel we got to control things to make it make sense.
Yeah.
But when you can step out of that bubble, as you say, then you don't have to control so much because life is freer and you're feeling more and you're enjoying life more. So you don't want as much either. So you're not as greedy, and you know, there's so many benefits that come with it.
And it's okay to get hurt. It's all right to be sad. It's all right to be angry. You just don't let that dominate who you are. Feel sad. You know, I feel sad sometimes. I look down and my hand's gone and my leg's gone and I've got phantom pains and I'm sad. But I don't let it ruin my whole day or my whole life. I just identify that, go, okay, kind of sucks. What am I going to do? I put my leg on, I put my hand on, I go and have a feed and I do something I love. And I change it all around. I go to the comedy store and I wet myself laughing and I have a good time. I hang out with friends. You'll find those triggers in your life that take that sadness and that anger away and replace it with something beautiful and worthwhile.
Yeah, fantastic. All we need is a whole bunch of yous on the planet. I think we'll be all right.
I think there's some pretty awesome people out there in the world doing amazing, much more than I'm doing. And I've got nothing but praise for some of my
Well, it's not
friends.
just what you're doing, Paul. It's where you're growing from. I just think it doesn't matter where you're at. You know, you're a growing man and you're going to keep growing and all that kind of stuff. I'm more making point of the place that you're in. Look at life has different flows. You know, we're talking about the one that doesn't work. You're on the one that works. And hence you've got these pearls of wisdom that keep coming out that are completely accurate about life because you're on that correct flow of life. And that's what people need to realize. It's not about where you're at. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't matter where you're at. Just jump on a healthy flow and everything will change.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how things are going, in the direction that they're taking.
Yeah. So who's in your life personally? What's your personal life at the moment? I know you got your dog.
Yeah, my best mate. Rescued him 2 years ago. And I've got my family all spread out over the country, so we never really see each other that much. But, it's like any family. As soon as you get together, it all melts away and it feels like you were just together last weekend. I've got a girlfriend over in America. I'm about to head off to America for another adventure, doing some television work. So that's another amazing opportunity that's popped up. Terrifying, once again, leaving my comfort of Sydney and Australia and wandering off into the unknown. And I might fail. Who knows? I might crash and burn, but I might not.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just going to go and see what happens. That's
well. Look, and this is what you were talking about earlier. The only thing that stops us is a feeling, right? And it's like if we become the basic survival mechanism of the human brain, which I think you can see in all living creatures, is to run from bad feelings and run towards good feelings.
Yeah.
But I think one of the keys is just to learn how to feel everything. Don't pick and choose, and then you'll be surprised what life can afford if you stop editing. Stop. No, I can't do this, and I'll try that, and
stop trying to make rules.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. All right, Paul. Look, I don't want to push it too hard with you or drag too much of your time. I think I feel like you've shared everything that really matters in this world, and not saying I'd love to talk to you again further down the track if you're happy to share. But the main thing is, you've got out what I feel like, is the essence of what everyone needs to be thinking about. And I think that's so much for people to go away and explore and feel within themselves and look at their own life and without judgment. And that's what I encourage of everyone. Don't judge yourself, let alone others. Because every time you judge another person, you're stuck in that ugliness. You know what I mean? And
you're doing the
the one
exact
stuck
thing
in it.
that you don't want
You can
people
justify
to
it
do.
all you like.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah. And don't do it to yourself either, because it's a waste of time. It doesn't help.
You're not moving forward then.
What was that?
You're not moving forward then.
No, exactly. Sorry, your Skype was just breaking up for a second.
No worries. All right, mate. Absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, you too.
Let's catch up again further down the track.
I'd love to. Love to, Paul. That was an absolute pleasure. Very special man, and I feel privileged to have had this time. And thank you. And I'm glad Dean invited you. He said, I reckon Paul's going to be pretty great to talk to. And I said, all right, I'll trust you on that. So,
all right, mate. I'll take the compliment.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. See you, Paul.
Bye.